Good evening. Welcome to today's Bible studies. This is the Banking Blessings Ministry coming to you from San Antonio, Texas. In today's Bible study, we are going to look at Jacob's children, basically, and the interactions between the wives when the children were being born. Last week, we looked at Jacob's marriage to Rachel and Leah and found out how he ended up marrying two wives and potentially two concubines. Today, we'll look at the interactions when the children were being born. And one of the things we're going to learn is that the polygamist nature of Jacob's family did create an environment in the family that made for unhealthy rivalry and competition between the wives. Naturally, because the one man cannot really love two women equally, there is competition for the husband's love, and this competition leads to unhealthy rivalry that can in fact dominate family interactions. And we find an example of this happening in Jacob's family. It was made worse by Jacob having children with the maidservants. Everything we're going to study today is in 3 chapters of Genesis 29, 30, and 35. We'll begin with the birth of the first 4 sons. Jacob, as we know, was married to Rachel and Leah, but it is really Rachel that he loved. He wanted to marry Rachel. The circumstances led him to marry the two of them. He loved Leah less than Rachel. And but somehow it happened that Rachel was barren. She didn't have babies immediately. It took a long time for her to have children. But Leah, on the other hand, was quite fertile and began to have children immediately. She had the first 4 sons for Jacob, and she named the first 3 of them in a way that underscores her rivalry with Rachel. The names of the first 3 children actually she chose to sort of talk about her rivalry with Rachel, either talk about it directly or just make a reference to it. The 4th child, Judah, she named in praise to God. When we read it in the Bible, you'll see that she said, "Now I will praise God." So let us read about this in Genesis 29, verses 31 to 35. In Genesis 29, I'm reading from the New International Version, NIV. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." So she named him Simeon. Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So he named him Levi. So he was named Levi. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. So we see Leah had 4 children. Each of them, you could see that she was thinking about her relationship, her interactions with her co-wife, and sister Rachel. She didn't say anything bad to Rachel, but each of the names sort of made reference to, oh, now my husband will love me, oh, God saw that I wasn't loved, and all that. So her focus was on using the names of the children to talk about her rivalry with Rachel. Then Rachel realized that she wasn't having children. She became really unhappy about it, and in fact complained about her husband, said her husband was the fault. Her husband got annoyed and said, well, it's not God, that it is God that will open her womb. Then Rachel said, okay, since she wasn't having her own children, she can offer her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob as a wife. And then she proposed this to Jacob, and Jacob accepted it, went in with Bilhah, and Bilhah had 2 sons, the 5th and 6th sons of Jacob. This time Rachel named them, and when she named them, she also named them in reference to talk about her relationship with Leah, her interactions, the rivalry. So Rachel named the 2 sons, and we'll read about this in Genesis 30, verses 1 to 8. Genesis 30 from the NIV version. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my maidservant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and that through her I too can build a family." So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Because of this, she named him Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "I have had a great struggle with my sister, and I have won." She named him Naphtali. When Leah saw this, Leah saw that, she wasn't having children anymore, but Rachel gave her maidservant Bilhah to Jacob, and Jacob has had 2 other sons with Bilhah. She realized that she also has a maidservant, and that she would try the same thing. So she gave her maidservant Zilpah to her husband as wife, and Jacob accepted. Jacob went in with Zilpah, and Zilpah had 2 sons for Jacob. Leah named the children, and this time she focused on her rivalry with Rachel over their husband. She used the names of the children to talk about the rivalry, or to talk about her triumph in the rivalry. Let's read about this in Genesis 30, verses 9 to 13. NIV, Genesis 30. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her maidservant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "What good fortune!" So she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, "How happy I am! The women will call me happy." So she named him Asher. At this time, something did happen, because it looks like Leah was barred from meeting with their husband intimately, The Bible didn't quite say this. The Bible told us how the ban was lifted. That Leah's son Reuben had gone to the field and got some mandrake plants. And mandrake is an aphrodisiac. So he brought this back, and Rachel wanted some of it. She went to Leah and requested some of the mandrake plants. And then Leah got annoyed and said, look, you took away my husband. Now do you want to take my son's mandrake as well? Then Rachel and Leah sort of made a deal. And Rachel said, look, if you give me some of the mandrake, I'll let you regain intimate access with our husband. It looks like Rachel was in charge at that point. Then Leah agreed, gave Rachel some of the mandrake, and then as soon as Jacob came back, she ran to Jacob and said, hey, you must sleep with me tonight because I bought you with the mandrake. I gave some of my son's mandrake to Rachel. Anyway, she went in with Jacob and had 2 more sons. And this time she named them the same way to sort of take snipes at her sister in their rivalry. During this period also, Leah had a girl and named her Dinah. And let us read about this in Genesis 30, verses 14 to 21. Genesis 30. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too? Very well, Rachel said. He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. You must sleep with me, she said. I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son. Then Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my maidservant to my husband. So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. Then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Sometime later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. So Leah had 6 sons. During the first birth she had 4, then stopped having. Her maidservant Zilpah had 2 on her behalf, and then she had 2 other sons and then 1 daughter. So she had 7 children from her womb. At this time, Rachel had not had any child by herself. Of course, her maidservant Bill had 2 sons, but Rachel kept praying, and her prayer was answered. She gave birth to a son, the 11th son of Jacob. She named him as a prayer for another son. She actually prayed in the name of the son. The name of the son was a prayer to God to give her another son. So several years later, Rachel gave birth to another son, the 12th son of Jacob. She named the child in reference to her troubled delivery. She had wanted to call the child Ben-Oni. But this time Jacob stepped in. Instead of naming the child, child of my troubles, Jacob changed the name to Benjamin, which meant child of my right hand. So let us read about the birth of Rachel's birth to the 11th son and the 12th son in Genesis 30, 22 to 24 for the first son, and then Genesis 35, 16 to 18 for the second son. In Genesis 30, then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. So she named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. Genesis 35. This time, actually this is a long time after the birth of Joseph. By this time, Jacob and his family had left Padan Aram, and we are in the area of Bethel. And at that time, Rachel was pregnant, but she was already old, and she had a troubled delivery. She had difficulties. Let us read about this in Genesis 35. Then they moved on from Bethel. While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, don't be afraid, for you have another son. As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. So what we see there, Rachel named the son Ben-Oni, which means child of my troubles. This is a footnote in the Bible, whereas Benjamin means child of my right hand. Well, so we find the rivalry between two of Jacob's wives, Jacob's two wives, dominated interactions in their family. For what we saw about the interactions, the names of the children actually showed us that this was a troubled family environment, and that most of the troubles came from the fact that Jacob was married to two women. And of course, being a natural person, he could not love the two of them equally. And because he couldn't, then they had to compete for his love, and this competition led to an healthy rivalry between the two women, between Rachel and Leah. And of course, Jacob having children also with the maidservants did not help matters. It made things worse. In fact, effectively, he became the husband of 4 wives, two wives that he married directly, and then later he took their maidservants as wives. So he ended up being the husband of 4 wives, and this, created a lot of discord in the family that we believe was sowed by Jacob by marrying 2 wives. Well, you can see the result of that of the 12 sons of Jacob, 9 were named in reference to a rivalry, to describe a rivalry, or to sort of take snipes at the other. The rivalry between Leah and Rachel dominated the names of the children. Only 2 children, Judah and Joseph, were named in reference to a relationship with God. When Judah was born, he was the 4th child. Leah said, now I will praise God. And that's the name Judah. And then when Joseph was born, the 11th son, her mother prayed for another child and said, may God add to me a 2nd son. And that is the name Joseph. We also see that Benjamin, the 3rd child, was the only other child that was not named after the rivalry between Leah and Rachel, because by that time the rivalry, they were all getting old, and the rivalry probably was no longer uppermost in their mind. And the fact that Rachel had a troubled delivery with Benjamin also dominated her mind, and so she wanted to name him child of her trouble. But his father was very close to this child that was born in his old age, and he realized that this was not going to be a good name, so he changed it to child of my right hand, which is the name Benjamin that we know today. Let us look briefly at the children. I think this screen is clear enough that we can see it. So you look at the first child, Reuben. The name means the Lord has seen my misery. And she was born by Leah. The second son, Simeon, the Lord had. That's the name, the Lord had, and that was given by, Leah said, the Lord had that I was not loved. So Levi, my husband now, will be attached to me. Also Leah, Judah, we've already talked about. Now I will praise the Lord. Dan, God has vindicated me. Naphtali, I won in my struggle with my sister. Gad, good fortune. Asher, the women will call me happy. Issachar, God rewarded me. Zebulun, my husband will honor me. Joseph, may the Lord add. Benjamin, son of my right hand. So out of 12 children, 9 were named, giving names that reflected the rivalry, the unhealthy relationship between the co-wives. The other 2 were named in recognition of relationship with God, and the 3rd was named with reference to love. Well, these discordant relationships, we will see in a future Bible study that it actually affected, there was such unhealthy relationship even among the children. And it is possible that this relationship between the rivalry between the wives, between Rachel and Leah, extended to the children. It's common for women to tell things to their children about their relationship with other people, especially in this case that they were all wives to the same man, and the children were all children of the same man. Then with Bilhah and Zilpah, what may have happened was because of the way they got to have children. They were not married directly by Jacob. They came in as maid servants. So they may have feared that their children, could be treated as second class or something like that, could be given a lower recognition in the family. And they must have been telling their children about this and say, look, you are as much a member of this family as any of the others, so don't let anybody, treat you like second class. So all of these things, and then of course there is the possible prophetic effects of children's names. We know that the names that parents give children at times may have a prophetic effect. So don't name children after, if in this case children were named after rivalry, so that rivalry probably will go with them. We don't know. I haven't looked at this history. It is quite possible that if you look at these the descendants of these children, you find that the names that were given to them may have had an effect on future relationships. So the outcome of Jacob marrying several wives, was different kinds of problems that resulted in his family. And these are natural because a man cannot love 2 or more wives equally. It's impossible. You can only love, no matter how you try, you're going to love one more than the other, and you're going to love one less than the other. Because of this, co-wives will compete for their husband's love. That's another natural instinct. They will compete. And the result of this could be unhealthy rivalry among the co-wives. And when this rivalry does exist, it could dominate family life. There's so much hustle about, things that belong to the father, which child should get what, and things like that. And this will remind us of Paul's counsel in Timothy. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2 and verse 12, Paul counseled Timothy and said he should not appoint polygamists as overseers or deacons. And this may have a connection to that, but even if it doesn't, we are reminded of this counsel to Timothy, and we relate it to experience within Jacob's family to see that Paul may have had a good reason for giving this counsel. Well, we've come to the end of our Bible studies tonight, and we hope that those people that will look at this in the future will enjoy it, will learn something from it, and will derive a positive impact on their life from something that they've learned through these Bible studies. Most important, we hope that you learn something that will affect your interaction with other human beings, your interactions with members of your family, your interactions with people, with co-workers, or if you're a student, your interactions with other students. Thank you for listening to our video. Watching our video and listening to the audio. And God bless you.